Hello and welcome to the Art Costume Podcast. I'm Elizabeth Joy Glass.
And I'm Spencer Williams. Elizabeth.
Hey!
We're here.
Look at us in the same room.
I'm like buzzing right now. I'm so excited.
I know.
We have been working on this set. I almost cursed, but we can't for the first 10 minutes on YouTube.
Oh.
Hey, costume nerds. It's so good to see all of you.
It is.
Elizabeth is here in person. We're in a new set.
Yes.
A new season.
5 people. We're at the start of season 5. And, you know, we're starting off with a bang in a year that is going to be interesting for film and costume and so many other reasons. And I just cannot wait to get into it.
Yeah, you might be thinking, oh, Emerald set, they must be doing Wicked.
Yeah.
And you'd be half right.
Yeah.
We are doing Wicked, but the Emerald set is not because of Wicked.
No.
And actually, at one point, Elizabeth and I were talking about getting pink chairs.
We were. And then we realized we couldn't do that, at least not yet. But I mean, we have a green set because we were going to do black. And then we realized we own too much black clothing. Like, this is one of the only like not black shirts I own currently.
Yeah, Elizabeth, she actually said in that production meeting, like, we'll actually lose Spencer and camera every single time. And honestly, we still might be. We're still working on the technology, but black probably would have been rough.
Yeah.
I still would have liked to see what black looked like, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the movie of the year. We're talking about Wicked this week. The film that you all have been emailing us, commenting, messaging us on Discord, YouTube comments.
Y'all are excited.
Yeah, and we are too.
Yes.
But we didn't want to do it without some very integral pieces like the Emerald City backdrop.
Yes, yes.
And the costume designer, Paul Tazewell. But before we get into that, let me give you all a little summary. Misunderstood because of her green skin, a young woman named Elphaba forges an unlikely but profound friendship with Glinda, a student with an unflinching desire for popularity. Following an encounter with the Wizard of Oz, the relationship soon reaches a crossroad as their lives begin to take very different paths. And that is Wicked, directed by John Chu.
It is. If you haven't seen Wicked and you can go see it in the theater, go to the theater for this movie.
Yeah,
I can't stress that enough. Go to the theater. It was probably my best theater going experience of 2024.
Yeah, it came out during the holidays. It was Glicked, which Elizabeth has a lot of thoughts about Gladiator. But I waited for all the holiday crowds and families to go because I was very afraid of hearing theater singers.
Yeah.
So I showed up by myself, and there I was at my AMC just crying, wearing my sweats and hoodie, just all by myself. And now I've gone several times. I took my mom the other day.
Oh,
it's magical.
That's when I saw it. I saw it with my mom.
Yeah.
It was actually really funny.
Bring your mom to work, Joey. But let's get into the film of the hour.
Yes. Let's meet our costume designer, the incredible, the incomparable Paul Tazewell. Oof. Which you will know his work from The Tempest, The Wiz Live, for which he received an Emmy Award, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, Jesus Christ Superstar Live in Concert, Harriet, Hamilton, for which he won a Tony Award, and West Side Story, for which he got an Oscar nomination. And at the time of recording this, people, Wicked has a BAFTA nomination and a CGA nomination, Critics' Choice Award, and like 16 other organizations are like, yes, these costumes slap.
Yeah, I was putting together the list of all of Paul's nominations so far, and I counted, I think, 16 of just like, you know, random film fests and whatnot.
Yeah.
And hey, if the Art of Costume also has a film award,
top of the list,
we'll make it 17.
Yeah.
Honestly. I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, Paul's gonna be another Oscar nominee.
I'm sure.
It's so obvious. And also Paul Tazewell, is he gonna be the first EGOT winner costume designer?
I was literally thinking about that. I was like, wait, hold on. He has an Emmy. He has a Tony. He's gonna get an Oscar. He's gonna get an Oscar at some point.
How can we get Paul Tazewell to win a Grammy? Paul, you need to put out your debut album this year.
We learned in our upcoming interview with him, he was a theater kid. He can probably sing. You can probably sing.
Do a rendition of like Defying Gravity or The Wizard and I. Just put that out. Make a couple mil. Yeah. EGOT winner.
We're gonna figure this out for you, Paul.
Anyways, let's get to what you're all here for. Of course, costume designer Paul Tazewell has done so much press over the past couple of months, which we really appreciate.
Yes.
And we just had to get on his list as well.
We did.
So we were very honored to be joined by Paul just yesterday. So we're going to play you that interview in just a second. We talk about a lot. We go back into all the way back to high school, I believe, for Paul, talking about his trajectory from Paul working on The Wiz in high school all the way up to Wicked and the future, and talking about some of our favorite characters. It was a really fun interview, and I hope you all enjoy. And after that interview, come back and we're going to catch up a little bit, because a lot has happened since you
saw us last
or not seen us last.
Since you heard us last, a lot has happened.
We're going to get into all that and also play our favorite game, One Costume Rule Them All, and give a Stitch rating, which we could probably get that out of the way now, but we'll do it after the break.
We'll keep a format.
All right. Talk to you all soon.
Hi, I'm Dan, who does all the magic behind the scenes. I wanted to say thank you, and if you want to support the show even farther, go to tpublic.com/user/theartofcostume, where you can buy a couple variations of our logo on t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. Also, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're an audio listener, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Now, back to the show.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Hi, Spencer and Elizabeth. How are you? I'm good.
So good. We're so excited to finally talk to you. But before we get to Wicked, we want to talk about your journey to Wicked. One of my favorite stories I've heard you tell is actually going back to some of your first productions. I believe you grew up in Ohio, and your first production was maybe The Wiz, which is kind of great foreshadowing.
Yes, you've done your research. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and as I was growing up, I went to a school that was a magnet school for high school. And when I was a junior in high school, which means that I was about 16 years old, I was given the task of designing the costumes for The Wiz. And that was really where I fell in love with theater, where I fell in love with the whole idea of entertainment. But my intention was to be a performer. And my instructor at the performing arts, within the performing arts program, saw that I had a proficiency in designing costumes, and so he offered me the job of being costume designer, as well as casting me as The Wiz. So I had the honor and task of actually designing my own costume. I didn't make that costume. My mother actually made it. It was a white suit, and then I had a wide brim hat, and I think that I might have made the cape that was lined in green satin.
Right, you did your touch.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I did design the rest of the production, and with the help of my family, we got everybody clothed in all sorts of costumes. So that was the very beginning, and I think that was where I saw that I could actually do it. I still was headed to I wanted to go to New York and start to audition and take dance classes, and I was on that journey, and then I transferred to North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem, and anymore it's called University of North Carolina School of the Arts. Yeah, then after graduating, I started designing professionally, first at the arena stage. That was probably because I ended up being the resident costume designer there. So that was my home base for about 8 years. And then I, at the same time as I was designing for productions there, I was also designing for other regional theaters around the country. Once I hit, I guess it was 4 years into that tenure of time, I was asked by George Wolfe to come to New York and design. First, there was a production called Blade to the Heat that was a straight play. And then at the same time, he asked me to design Bring It to Noise, Bring It to Funk, which was a new Broadway show. It was my first Broadway show. It starred Savion Glover. Then I was nominated for a Tony for that. And, I just continued working.
You have designed some fantastic productions. You brought up Bring In the Noise, Bring In the Funk, along with The Color Purple in the Heights. Of course, Hamilton. Such an amazing show. I'm curious, how did all of this previous work prepare you for Wicked, which is certainly a huge task to be taking on?
That's a great question, and it's one that I acknowledged. Definitely I've acknowledged it to myself, because Wicked incorporates so many different elements, and I had the delight of pulling all that together and being able to orchestrate it with some amazing talents.
Yes.
But I've said this about my work on Hamilton. I couldn't have delivered the design that I did without the experience, the collective experience that I have had previous to that, previous to that experience. What I was talking about Arena Stage. There was a full-time staff of costume makers at the Arena Stage at that time. And they were all building costumes at the top of their, the top of their game. When I came into that, having all the knowledge that I had from school and, my own interest in building costumes, it gave me the opportunity to really study and understand, as I was, actively designing, how to best work and collaborate with other makers. And so those 8 years, I was perfecting my craft out, kind of on the sidelines, not in full focus of everyone else. My experience would have been much different if I had been in New York, but it gave me the opportunity to design many, many different kinds of productions, because much of my career, and we might get into this later in the conversation, but much of my career has been designing stories about people of color. Mm-hmm. And some were, did lean into the 21st century, but most of them were 20th century. Many were about, characters that were more urban and street, and so that I was asked to do an array of different characters. But those periods were pretty limited. What, the economic level was limited to what those stories could hold. Just to get back to what your question was, like all of those added up into knowing all the techniques and being in full control of how to best tell the story of Wicked. Yeah. Because I understand the vast array of different ways of telling the story, as well the experience of, how costumes hold the story, support the story, because they support the character.
It's been one incredible culmination, which has resulted in Wicked, honestly. And before we get into some of the specific costumes, one thing that stood out to Elizabeth and I, which means a lot to, I think, a lot of people, is you've obviously done a lot of press with Wicked, but I've noticed how you've used your spotlight to kind of highlight the people that helped make Wicked possible, along with yourself. I mean, everyone from milliners, costumers, assistant costume designers, illustrators. Can you tell us why that's been so important to you to make sure that all of your crew members are feeling seen in this process?
Because it's about being seen. Yeah. It's so very necessary for people to understand that there's a huge, it's a cliche, but there's a huge village of people that are behind all those people that get to be seen in front of the camera or on stage. And I think that, because Wicked is so out, so far outside of the box in terms of how we could manifest, all of these magical costumes, and with different kinds of techniques. I wouldn't have been able to manifest the design, to actually create the design, without the expertise of those people that were all pulled together. And with that, it then became very important, and it's always been very important, to shine a light on their work, because that, the only way that I can do my job and bring that to the stage, or that to film, is to have, the support of amazing artisans. That team, those people that are behind me, are imperative to that process, because they're the ones that are actually creating it. And if it's not done well, then it doesn't look good. A badly made costume is a badly made costume.
Yeah.
And it will never resonate in the way that I want for it to, which is specific to, making these characters as real as possible, so that we can engage with them. The audience can engage with them in a way that lets them, really fall into the story and go on the ride with us. That's
so true. And I love that you're highlighting their work. So let's get into your and your team's work with Wicked. What was your initial reaction to getting this job and to be able to get to work with your two amazing lead actresses?
When I was approached by John Chu, I was beside myself. I mean, and I had met John before, and I was just hoping and praying for the opportunity, not for Wicked necessarily, but just an opportunity to work with him. Because, when I was approached, I'm always delighted that somebody thinks and believes in me, that that what I've done, kind of inspires them to offer me the opportunity. And then, once I get over that, then it's like, now I really have to, to deliver. Mm-hmm. So there's delight and fear at the same time. Then, in my conversations with John that were then after that first meeting, it became a delight, because he is so wonderful to work with. He's very warm. He's very engaging. He had a very clear idea of how he wanted to tell the story. And he also kept the possibilities open, the creative possibilities open, to have his team become a part of his process. And, so I went away and I started to collect all kinds of images. I mean, I think that my first meeting with him was a presentation, which was a collection of visual images that spoke to me as to how we might represent the design of Wicked. And I was familiar with the Broadway show. I had listened to the Broadway show a lot, and was moved by that. I'm friends with the original designer of the Broadway show as well.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So it was important, and because of that, it was important for me to create my own world and have my own take on it. And so when I heard that John wanted to reinterpret what what this world is, I was so relieved, because it wasn't going to be a recreation of anybody else's work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that it's like with The Wiz, that I've done a number of times since that production in high school.
Since the dining room table.
These characters are very well known to us. And, it then is our task to tell the story that feels familiar, but then also where it can be experienced in a new way. And that was what we were about, and who is, the character of Glinda, and who is the character of the Wicked Witch of the West as it relates to Elphaba. And what, going back to the 1939 film, and then the book before that, and also the Gregory Maguire novel, collecting all of those pieces that already existed, as well as the Wicked musical on Broadway, but really studying what those icons are and what speaks to audiences, it is grounded in a collective idea of storybook, in a way. And some of that is informed by the 1939 film. When you think about the Munchkins, and that there's a kind of classic folk quality to that group of people.
And one thing we've talked about on this podcast quite a bit actually is your use of color feels very specific and intentional. So obviously with Wicked, there's the green and a pink, but we also notice that there's a lot of other through lines that are carrying through. You've mentioned nature. I'm seeing a lot of spirals. I've heard some math terms like Fibonacci sequence, which I haven't heard since high school. So what were some of those through lines that you try to carry through the entire film?
Again, it was about digging deep into what rules govern this visual world, so thinking about spirals, and it was inspired by the imagery that I was finding, first, and then acknowledging that I'm very much drawn to the design of a spiral as it applies to this world, and so I went searching for other kinds of spirals, and then what came up. This is the benefit of being able to research, over the internet, and all of the imagery that you can access. But the Fibonacci sequence and the spiral that comes out of that. One, it's how it's connected to nature, and then also how it is the formula to get at what I was drawn to as imagery that felt whimsical. So, it was trying to create in some ways the science that helps this world to operate.
Sure.
And with Nathan and what he was doing with the scenery, he was also very drawn to spirals with it. You can see it in the way that it's all the detailing, and much of that, starts to look, very Art Nouveau. But then even in the forest where the trunks are spiraling, into, a curve. So, that then is very identifiable for our world of Oz. Once we were in London, we were in this, like a war room. We were, it was a, big conference room. And then all of our work was up on the walls surrounding us. And Nathan had his huge sets that he was working out spatially. And, you would see how, the definition of a land was starting to come to life and really hop off the wall, as you would go from look to look, and so, it was really exciting, the whole time.
Yeah, it's every time you watch the film, you kind of see something different too. I feel like
one spectacular piece, I think, is the bubble dress worn by Glinda. It's beyond breathtaking, and I imagine this took a lot of careful thought. How did you and your team create something that it felt both original and very reminiscent of the original Wizard of Oz film?
It was a delight. Actually, there's a that first slide that you had up. The person who created this, who made this costume, his name is Ian Fraser Wallace, and he's holding the Barbie cake. So that he's an amazing tailor. And he ended up starting with the Fibonacci spiral sequence. To get the shape of the skirt, those cones that create the skirt. So it was, that there was a direct relationship to what we were, even to how we're managing our pattern making. And I thought that was really beautiful. The idea, just, kind of stepping back a bit, because the Glinda from the 1939 film was in pink, I really wanted to make use of that as an icon. because when you say Glinda, for me, when you say Glinda, that's the image that comes up for me.
Yeah.
And I find that a very, even of the 1930s, I find that a very magical dress, how it was created and how it sparkles, and Billy Burke in it, is quite cool. And so I wanted to create an icon that could move close to that and be reminiscent of that. And then also use the color of pink throughout the rest of, because so much of what we were doing was to give a backstory to these two central characters so that we understand what their relationship was. So we needed to see them, and the two of them, what their style was when they enter into Shiz, and how, because of their connection, their style shifts and changes. And just as they mature, their clothing style shifts and changes. So, we're presented with Glinda at her pinnacle, with the pink dress, and then we reel back. We time shift back to their early 20s, I am so glad that we were then able to use the color of pink, because I think that was something that had been restricted, but to be able to really make a huge use of that color to define who Glinda is seemed really appropriate. It was also very, for me, was the image of the bubble and how the pink was, kind of reflective of that. It's like, bath bubbles, or, just that iridescent idea as well. So, I think that it all worked out quite wonderfully. I mean, just how sculptural it is, and also the fact that it feels kind of light as a feather, because everything is so buoyant. It speaks to that character.
Well, if Elizabeth's favorite costume is the bubble dress, mine is definitely the Defying Gravity look. First, quick shout out to the hat. I think the hat is spectacular, and I love looking at pictures of it. But my question about the Defying Gravity look is, it's also a technical achievement, because Cynthia is flying around in this costume. So I imagine that was something that you and your team had to take into consideration as well. So I'm curious if you could kind of break down that scene a little.
Oh, sure. I mean, the dress, it's her invitation to Emerald City. It's the first time that she meets the wizard. So she's dressing up. Before that, she has gone through a series of looks that, where she's opening up, she's softening, and you realize that there's a connection with Fiyero as well. You see that love interest, and where she's gone from being very restrictive and her silhouette is very defined. She then moves into a look that is much more agile. Her boots become taller, and she's got trousers on and a kilt and a blouse and vest. But then, in getting invited to Emerald City, she chooses to wear a dress. She dresses herself up to meet the wizard. With that dress, it moves her in a silhouette that is reflective of the Wicked Witch of the West from the 1939 film.
Wow.
In a similar way to with Glinda and the pink bubble dress, that it is, it's reflective of that icon, that where we're going to end up. And knowing that Elphaba is going to really find her power at the very end of the film, I was setting it all up visually so that so we get that moment when she's looking at the one this one that you got right in front of you, which is probably my most favorite moment of the film. Wow. And she turns around and whips the cape around, and and we it's just really brilliant, just that she, has fully arrived, and all those pieces kind of accidentally coming together to be the silhouette both reflective of the Wicked Witch of the West, but most definitely Elphaba. And, I think that was really moving for me. But, as you can see, I mean, there's much more that's going on. It's not just, it's not a recreation of the 1939 Wicked Witch of the West dress. It is informed by the other silhouettes that we've seen on Elphaba throughout the film, with this, the shape of the shoulders, her connection to texture, which is, I call that, the underside of a mushroom texture that we have on the dress, which is micropleated chiffon that's laid onto them. It's, very laborious, but beautifully done by another amazing tailor. All of those things together, along with the hat, the silhouette of the hat, it makes her a very original Elphaba / Wicked Witch of the West, as an icon.
Sure.
Even on the cape, thinking about what fabrics can I use that will give her gravitas, that will ground her, and that she can whip around in the way that she does, but that will still be visually interesting and speak to the rest of the textures that I've been using on her clothing, throughout the film. And so, another amazing fabric painter, artist, created a pattern. The two of us created a pattern that would get burned away on this silk velvet. So knowing that silk velvet, one, will drape beautifully, it'll have a weight and a gravitas, but then we can emboss this, kind of wave pattern that looks like bark. It all then comes together, really.
Sure. It gives me chills every time I see it. It's the best. Just like this one final scene we want to talk about.
Yes, in just a film of incredible spectacles, I think One Short Day really stands out. Especially, we get to such a fun cameo with Idina Menzel and Kristin Chenoweth. What was it like bringing that scene together and then adding this fun cameo of the two of them into this already spectacular scene?
As a theater nerd, you must have been excited.
Yeah.
It was, absolutely. It was exciting. The prospect was exciting. It was terrifying in getting it done. One, because we were pressed to the very end as to whether they were going to do it or not. So we weren't exactly sure that it was going to be Idina and Kristin, and that scene was coming up on our calendar, and we were running out of time. The set itself hadn't been completely designed either, so it was all kind of happening all together in the moment. We did have, I wonder how many weeks that because we only had a couple of weeks to actually build the costume, and they were not in London. So I actually had to travel to New York to fit Idina in New York. What the idea for Nathan was this kind of pop-up book. The idea of the theatricality of it would be that it was like a pop-up book. And so I really kind of latched on to that and created these costumes that would move in a way like moving pages. And then each of those different leaves or layers is individually printed. So the printing is ombre. It's on a nylon organza that will it would hold the color and actually print in the way that we needed for it to be printed, because it was a heat process that was very specific to that fabric, and then creating the shapes with the draper in the amount of time, doing the fittings, having all those edges, edged with monofilament, and then doing all of the beading that needed to happen on top of it. I mean, it was, it was quite an extensive, and it was all hands on deck in creating them. At the same time, we're creating the soldiers on stilts and the flatheads and it just didn't stop.
The scene needs its own podcast.
But it was just so exciting, and everybody was in their element.
Well, before we let you go, we had two silly questions for you. First, do you consider yourself an Elphaba or a Glinda?
Oh gosh. I know that I'm an Elphaba.
Okay.
That is my true self. I toy with being Glinda, but I'm also kind of a people pleaser, so that makes me kind of Glinda. But really, in my heart, in quiet moments, I'm Elphaba. And
then finally, what is your song from Wicked that you're humming or singing in a shower?
Oh God, all of them. But the Wizard and I was one of my favorites.
That's mine. Yeah. I lost my voice a little bit last night when we were putting together the interview. Yeah. Well, costume designer Paul Tazewell, this has been such a joy. We still have like 1,000 questions, but luckily for us, we have a whole other film. So maybe we'll do it again in a year or so. Yeah, and I'm so excited to share all of those because we have some great looks. I mean, it's good. Just there's so much for this world, and I'm so excited. Great. Well, we're so excited. I mean, yes. I can't even. So thank you so much, Paul. This has been such a joy, and we can't wait to talk soon. All right. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
That was so fun. I love getting to know how people got into the career.
Yeah.
That they're in, like the journey to that place. Mm-hmm. And I love how in depth he went.
It's always very inspiring, and I love hearing Paul talk. Like I've said, I've seen him on probably 4, 5, 6 panels now throughout my career of working with the art of costume.
I've like talked to you and you're like, I gotta go to a panel with Paul Tazewell. I was like, oh, okay.
Even if it's about the same movie or show production, I'm like, I'll be there. Paul is the nicest. I also love that we got to find out what Wicked song he hums in the shower.
I know.
These are the hard-hitting questions that you all are continuing to tune in and subscribe for.
Yeah.
The Wizard and I.
We get the answers.
The Wizard and I is a good one.
It is.
Yeah.
Although like this, the Wicked just has such good music, good lyrics.
Well, some things we want to mention before we play our favorite games. First order business, new set, new us.
Yes.
All of our episodes now are going to be in full video, which we've been talking about for years. And Elizabeth moved out here and we were like,
it's the time.
No time like the present.
No.
I need to give a major shout out to my father, Dave, because he helped me build this thing. We literally sat down with like a piece of paper and we sketched it out, measured, built all the piping together, cut the piping. Yeah, so he really came through. He happened to be in town. We've been going through a lot of like family stuff that I want to get into this year. So he's been around a lot, which has been awesome for me and my family. And he was like, let's do this thing. So props to you, Dad. And also to our incredible producer, Daniel, who's been helping us put this thing over FaceTime.
Yes.
Which is not easy, but he really cares and is doing his best to make this look as amazing as possible. And we love him. And thank you, Daniel, for doing that.
It's been great.
Mind us as we work on the lighting and whatnot. This episode 1, we're figuring it out. And if you guys subscribe, like we've been asking you to, we'll, maybe things will get different. We'll be able to upgrade and get nicer cameras. Maybe get a couple so you could get close-ups on Elizabeth when we talk about Paul Mescal.
Stop.
Update number 2, Elizabeth has moved to LA. How are you liking it? Aside from the things we're getting ready to get into in a little bit.
I'm loving it. It's better. It's warmer than Pennsylvania, though I'm mad because the one thing I like about the cold is snow, because the snow makes all the dead...
We have a different kind of snow in LA.
...trees look pretty. The snow makes all the dead stuff look pretty. And apparently they've been getting... The last couple years I lived back home, very little snow. What are they getting 7 inches of today?
Yeah.
Snow.
Full on blizzard.
They've been getting lots of snow, and I'm a little upset about it, but I'm very happy that I can walk out of my home without like mittens and a hat on.
Yeah, that's good. And it's been fun having Elizabeth and I are literally neighbors now.
Yeah.
We have to get into the first fun thing we've done together, aside from putting together the set. We went to this magical place called Costco. It was so fun. Oh my gosh. So I'm a member now. We went there. We didn't know we kind of knew what to expect. But we had so much fun. We were...
It was overwhelming.
We're going to include some pictures, but like we were looking at like an ice plunge.
Yeah.
We were looking at a inflatable like little spa thing.
It gave you a snippet into what your 30s will be. And I was like, yes, Spencer.
Yeah. I found these Adidas like joggers that made me really stoked.
You were excited.
Elizabeth was so hyped on the frittatas that she found.
I was so excited for the frittatas.
Yeah, look at this picture. It's so funny. Okay, now. Wait, I didn't realize. I took the picture of you with the frittata in front of a huge bulk section of Miralax. Did you notice that?
You have great photography skills, Spencer.
Look at it. I did not notice that.
I would not have noticed it unless you said something.
Great. I should be a director of photography.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's been having fun. It's been fun having you here. I'm glad we get to do this together. I think it's gonna rejuvenate our love for the podcast. Not that it was diminished, but like this sounds like a fun new challenge.
It's hard doing it bi-coastally.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have you here. And one thing I wanted to bring up before we get into our games is we have to talk about the California wildfires, which has impacted so many people.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and I were in the evacuation warning zone and we lost power, whatnot. We were sheltering together.
Yeah.
Which was a great second or third week for you here in LA, which was crazy. But I just wanted to say, like, on behalf of the three of us, our hearts really go out to everyone who's lost their homes. Like you heard me say in the Nosferatu episode, you know, we have friends that have lost their homes. We know so many costumers, costume designers, people working in the industry, or just families that we know and love that have lost so much. So please go to our show notes. We have a link tree. I believe it's called Art of Costume Aid, and you could go there for resources for those that have been impacted, or for if you're looking for ways to donate and help others, volunteer opportunities. We also have a list of some people that we know that have lost homes if you're looking for a place to donate. I mean, there's a million different things that you could do, and it's not always monetarily. No. So please check that out. It would mean a big deal to us if you could help take care of our community out here, because LA is really going through it right now.
Going through it. And it's not over, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're still working on getting those fires out, and people are still being affected.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could check those out, and like, even if you can't help out now, if you can help out in a month, there's still going to be like so much to do, and so many people who need help in the months to come.
Yeah, it's like a 3-year process to rebuild your home. Yeah, at least. So our hearts are with you, LA. Please do what you can if you're not in the area, and you know, we love you. And we want to bring this podcast back now because we feel like now is the time for celebrating the little things in life that we have, like costume design.
Yes.
And with that, I think we need to do some serious business for Wicked, starting with a Stitch rating.
Yes.
This is, I want to say, probably one of my easiest Stitch ratings.
Same.
It's a 5.
It's a 5. Yeah. It's honestly, I was very excited for Wicked, was concerned about how it would translate. Now, granted, I've never seen the Broadway production. I just grew up with the soundtrack and like seeing bits and snippets here and there, and like learning about it just through our culture. It's a big touchstone. So I was concerned. I was like, this is like a long musical. I know there's like a lot in it, and I was very relieved when I realized it was the first of 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes like musical translations to film don't always hit.
Yeah.
And this did.
Yeah.
It absolutely did.
It was, I dare say, like an actual perfect movie. I was also a little hesitant. I just, the press was really taking over the world, and I was like, oh, this might be too overhyped.
Yeah.
But it was actually maybe underhyped. It was that good. I have seen the Broadway production. Like I've mentioned to you before, but probably never on mic, but I kind of fell asleep during the Broadway production. So I don't know what happens in the second half. So I am also thankful to John Chu for us having two movies, because the suspense is real in my mind, because I don't know what happens next.
You don't.
I knew what happened up to Defying Gravity. After that, it's really a fuzzy spot for me, but I thought it was perfect. Aside from the costumes, I just think visually it was incredible. Cynthia Erivo, incredible, such a powerhouse, and I knew she would kill it as Elphaba. Ariana Grande really blew me away.
So good.
I was admittedly a little
good.
This could go wrong. I don't know, but she killed it.
She killed it. And I'm I'm not a big Ariana Grande fan, so I was not really familiar with her as an actress all that much.
She wasn't familiar with her game.
Yeah. Because I was by the time she was, what was she, a Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
By the time she was on Nickelodeon, I kind of aged out of that. And I knew she was an amazing singer. So I was like, she'll at least, sound amazing.
Yeah.
But the way she's just such an incredible actress and singer, and both of them really got their characters down.
Yeah.
And it was just so exciting. And shout out to whoever did the special effects, because the way they mixed practical sets and stuff looked so good.
Yeah.
And like he said, Jonathan, he wanted it to be like a pop-up book. They really hit that balance.
And Paul Tazewell's work, I mean, that's if there was higher than a Stitch rating, it would be higher than 5.
It would be a 10. It would be, his work is a 10 out of 10 stitches.
Yeah, it's perfect. With that, are you ready to play our favorite game?
I don't know.
All right. Well, Daniel, hit the music.
The one costume to rule them all.
All right. So are you ready, Elizabeth? Because
I'm ready.
I'll go first if you're still cooking on it.
I'm still cooking. So Spencer, what is your one costume to rule them all?
Okay. Well, I have to give first an honorable mention, because I really have been toying between these two costumes. And Elizabeth knows that I so desperately wanted to talk to Paul about it, but we just had way too many questions and not enough time. Ariana Grande, Glinda's costume for the popular number, the pink,
so cute,
night robe.
I want that.
Oh gosh, that was such a good one. And the big bubbly sleeves. It's just such great foreshadowing, but just looking at the textures and the construction of it, it's crazy good. But my one costume ruled them all has to be Elphaba's Defying Gravity look.
Yes.
Just because I think everyone kind of knew what it could look like. And I just think that Paul really was able to turn it into something quite extraordinary. Because first of all, it is hard to work in all black.
Yes.
Just because you really have to give a texture to it. And I've seen this costume in person now at an event. And that under the mushroom type texture that Paul was talking about really comes through on a dress.
Yeah.
I love the hat. The hat to me is everything, because it could have just been a pointy cone hat. It was not.
Yeah, no.
Paul's team killed it with that. And then that moment where Glinda grabs the black fabric and dusted it off. So then when Elphaba spins it around for Defying Gravity, it just was everything to me. I was like, this is so
good.
Cool. So is it the flashiest costume? No, but I think to me, it's the most powerful costume.
One thing I liked about Elphaba's costumes in particular is it let Cynthia Erivo, her talent shine.
Yeah.
Her ability shine. It so supported what she was already doing that, because for that character, it wasn't about the clothes. It was about who she was as a person.
Yeah.
So it just let her do her thing, which was amazing. And then on the other hand, with Glinda, I have to say, I think my one costume to rule them all is the bubble dress.
I should have saw that coming.
'Cause it's just, one of the things, I was talking about this with Spencer yesterday. One of the things I really liked about what Paul did for the movie was like the way he combined like inspiration from the stage musical, from the original, like 1939 film.
Yeah.
And then
Something like that.
It's so long ago. The way like he took inspiration from those and then just made something like so unique and brand new, I think really shines through with the bubble dress.
Yeah.
And like the cones and the skirt, and it's just such a visual impact right at the start of the movie, and like tells you everything you need to know about Glinda.
Yeah. It's very strong, and it's overwhelming. And just seeing the construction of it too. I loved talking with Paul and looking at the underpinnings of it and how complex it was. I mean, that's a solid one costume, rule them all.
Another, I think my honorable mention for the film would be though the wizard. Oh. Jeff Goldblum's just like a dapper salesman suit. I also really like that. He showed up and I was like, yes, you are the wizard, Mr. Goldblum.
Jeff
yes,
Goldblum was born to play that role.
He was.
He was. Really, the casting in this film was perfect. Even
it was so perfect.
Every single one of them. Michelle Yeoh, Ariana, Cynthia, Jeff Goldblum. Oh my gosh, the guy who plays Fiero, who we love from Bridgerton.
Oh, Jonathan Bailey.
There you go. I almost called him the Viscount.
The Viscount.
Yeah. Well, this is fun. Yeah. I'm so glad we finally got to do Wicked.
Me too.
And it was fun doing it in the studio too.
I know.
Honestly. And we have so much more coming up too.
So much.
But before we tell you our next episode, don't forget, as we mentioned, resources for LA wildfires are in our show notes. We're on YouTube. We've been on YouTube, but now we're like really depending on you all to check our YouTube. Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe. I know it's down below somewhere right here. I've always want to say subscribe to our channel, so we can say that now. Instagram at the Art of Costume Pod. When we were recording our interview with Paul, TikTok was banned, and now that we are recording the next day, it's no longer banned. So for the time being, follow us on TikTok at the Art of Costume. If you can get to it.
Hey, here in the US, I don't know. Around the world though.
Yeah.
Go to our TikTok because it still exists.
It still exists
in the rest of the world.
I was on TikTok when I was getting ready today. So
okay.
I don't know. We do have a Discord, so come and chat with us, and which is pretty fun. We're making some cute little emojis over there.
Yes.
And if you want to tell us what episodes you want to see this year, we do have a survey. It's not really a survey, it's more like a suggestion box that's open for like the next couple weeks. It's also in our show notes. Leave us a 5-star review, so on and so forth. We really appreciate that. Elizabeth, what are we watching next?
I'm so excited. It is February, the month of love. And we're not doing fairy tale romance exactly.
Oh, we did do that one time, huh?
We did do that one time.
Yeah.
We're doing more of a English romance month.
My favorite.
Starting with the Academy Award-winning film, Shakespeare in Love.
Ooh. I've never seen it, actually.
It's good. You're gonna like it. Okay. You're gonna like it.
The costume. I do know that Sandy Powell did the costumes and won. So good. And we're moving into our favorite season of the year, award season.
Yes, we are.
What a good way to start the award season with Shakespeare in Love. This has been fun, costume nerds. Thank you so much for joining us for our season 5 premiere. And subscribe, listen to us, leave a 5-star review, and can't wait. We'll see you soon. We have lots of great stuff coming up.
Bye.
Cheers.